Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of the Cinematropolis.com. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and I'm what you might call a champagne problem. Today, we're going to be doing two reviews of movies that are in no way alike in any way.
Oh, man.
In no way alike in almost any size, shape, or form. We're going to be reviewing the popcorn blockbuster, perhaps the last one of the summer, Hobbs and Shaw. Excuse me. Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh, that's important. They wouldn't be here otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah, that's literally the only reason they're like, we can't sell it on Hobbs and Shaw. And then that spoiler-free review is going to be reviewed by... We're going to start with the popcorn, and we're going to end with the vegetables. I know we're doing it all backwards here on the Cinematic Schematic, because we're going to be reviewing Lulu Wang's new film, The Farewell. It's received tons of critical acclaim, and it's a movie I've been looking forward to quite a lot all year long, and it's going to be a great time.
So I'm going to go ahead and say that, that The Farewell is definitely the raw broccoli, good for nutrition, and then... Hobbs and Shaw is definitely the cheese that goes on top that makes it more digestible for people who don't like their vegetables.
That's true. If you were looking for a double feature,
yeah.
If you wanted a double feature that makes no sense but yet is kind of still delicious,
yes, there you go.
Hobbs and Shaw and The Farewell. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Laron Chapman, also known as a big can of whoop-ass. Laron Chapman,
there it is.
Welcome back to the Cinematic Schematic.
Wow. So I'm going ahead and say I'm The Rock then. But no, it's fine. Hey, thanks for having me back. Always good to be here.
You're always welcome to be my Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, listeners, and I do want to remind you that if you want to keep up with all of our reviews, analyses, and written work, you can head on over to the Cinematropolis.com. You can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/the Cinematropolis or on Twitter at the Cinematrop. We have so much to cover between these two movies. We're just going to go ahead and take this time right now, and we're going to jump right into our review of Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw.
Our target's name is Brixton. He's a ghost. We're gonna need the best trackers in the business. Luke Hobbs.
I'm what you call an ice-cold can of whoop-ass.
Career lawman. Always gets his guy. We're gonna need to operate outside the system. Deckard Shaw.
I'm what you might call a champagne problem.
Rogue former MI6 agent. Doesn't play well with others. If we stand a chance against Brixton, you guys have to work together.
No way. This guy's a real ass.
So the synopsis is super spoilery, LeBron. I don't know if I should read it for the listeners, but it's out in the public, so I guess
sure.
I should. Okay, am I allowed? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, because I know everyone wants to stay very spoiler-verse on the Fast and Furious franchise. Yeah.
Tight, not like, highly kept secrets here.
Lawman Luke Hobbs and outcast Deckard Shaw form an unlikely alliance when a cyber-genetically enhanced villain threatens the future of humanity.
Dun, dun, dun.
And also that cyber-genetically enhanced villain is played by Idris Elba, which, I might add, is the thing that got me back on board with this movie.
Let's be real, we're here for Daddy Elba. That's what we're here for.
That is 100%.
And nobody else.
Nobody else. I mean, yeah.
Well, there are a couple. This is let's say he's the prime rib. That's why we're here for this franchise. It's the reason why we're here to jump on this one.
If we're really thinking about this in terms of food and Fast and Furious, it's really, he's the McRib of the movie, if you will, of the marketing, right?
Yes.
He's limited time.
Sans onions. Sans minced onions.
Sans onions. But listen, he's the limited time offering that we just can't resist.
Yeah, exactly.
But for some reason, he's probably going to come back at some point anyway.
Yeah. Make an appearance. He has to now.
Yeah, exactly. So Laron Chapman, firstly, Luke Hobbs is a lawman. That's kind of silly. I don't even think this IMDb synopsis.
He's a lawman.
In fact, isn't the beginning of the movie show kind of how lawless he is as a quote unquote lawman?
Yeah. I think it's just a joke. That has to be a joke. But he's definitely he knows his way around the law, all the loopholes for sure.
All right. Well, Laron Chapman, we have a history.
We do.
Of being fans of the Fast and Furious franchise.
We are. It's a guilty pleasure. I mean, everyone has theirs. Some people it's their Transformers. Some people,
Oh God, I feel bad for those.
I
people.
feel bad for those people too. But hopefully, they're not our listeners.
I say that as a person who likes the Fast and Furious movies, but no, I'm with you. This is definitely a guilty pleasure. It's the thing you're most embarrassed to try to. It's not that I'm not embarrassed to admit that I like these.
Sure.
I'm embarrassed when I try to explain why I like them.
And
everyone always stares at me like, "What are you talking about?"
Well,
you're thinking
you just don't understand. You don't understand.
I'm like, it's meta, and the action shot really well, and they're like, Caleb, it's a really big dumb blockbuster. I'm like, no, but like it's aware.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
But
yeah. So yeah, I think specifically going through the history of the franchise, first one solid, second one meh, third one meh plus maybe depending on your.
It was the
it felt
at the time it felt like the third Halloween movie, where like it's its own entity, and some people will swear by it as its own standalone film, like, oh, it's great on its own, but it doesn't feel like it has anything to do with the rest of the franchise. It's like, but we later find out that
however, because this is Fast and Furious, and because the producers got so desperate and happened to strike gold.
Yeah.
Fast and Furious 4, better than, I would argue, 2 and 3, but not great. But Fast 5.
Fast 5 is where the franchise, since its inception with the original, where we saw like what the franchise was capable of being. And it was okay that it was this big, dumb blockbuster that was smart enough to know that it was a big, dumb blockbuster and had fun with with that premise. And so...
It knew what it was. It's really strange because when we were prepping for this podcast, I was thinking, oh, it was trying to cash on the Avengers, bring the team together thing. But then I realized, oh wait, it came out a year before the Avengers. I believe it was a 2011 film. So
we have the Fast and Furious to thank for the Avengers. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah, yes,
No.
But it's weird because it kind of did a similar thing where it's like, oh hey, here's these other 4 movies, and now we're gonna make this 5th movie where it all comes together and seems like it has a purpose all of a sudden, even though there was no way this was intentional. The action set pieces were spectacular. They were lots of fun, well shot.
Yeah.
The characters, it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
There's enough melodrama for you to pretend to be invested in that you kind of care a little bit.
Yeah.
But also you're not really watching for that. You're watching to see the melodrama followed by crazy action set pieces.
Yeah, it's just slick, polished, blockbuster cheese. You know? It's it's nachos with the extra jalapenos.
That's right.
Right. Movie nachos with jalapenos.
And the jalapenos, of course, being the
food
Rock
references.
The Rock Johnson, Dwayne the Rock Johnson was
go.
the jalapeno on top of that one.
Exactly.
Because that was the first film they introduced Luke Hobbs in as a main character, and in that film, of course, he was hunting down the Fast and Furious gang, and now he has since become a member of the team. And such a member of the team, apparently, that he has warranted his own spinoff with his new arch nemesis based on the 7th movie. Deckard Shaw, played by Jason Statham.
It does sound more ridiculous now that we describe it.
Oh, and we're just going high level, Laron. We're not even getting into we're not even talking about Letty and her memory loss. And it's a soap opera, folks. It is a Saturday morning cartoon met with a soap opera.
That's it.
And I love it.
I do too.
Except for the 8th movie, but we're not gonna talk about Fate of the Furious. So, listeners, just know that we are fans of the series as a whole.
Right.
They're fun, they're dumb.
Yeah.
And you just heard how silly it was for us to try to explain why we like them and what the heck's even going on. So, Laron Chapman, as a fan of the franchise, how would you review Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw?
I feel like, again, they're cashing in on a couple of things because I think this franchise hinges on both spectacle and charm. And I feel like we got plenty of that between, the rivalry here with The Rock and Jason Statham. And I think... they know these characters well enough. They're having fun. You can tell they're having fun with it. And then it's over the top. It's ridiculously over the top, but in a winking at the camera sort of way, not at a like, we're taking this very serious and you should too sort of way. And so I think...
Wait. You're saying when The Rock drops out of a window and grabs with his bare hands the steel aluminum elevator wire that he then slides down while gripping... at the speed of a dude falling. You're saying that this wasn't serious?
I laughed out loud, and I think, but I think that was the point. That is what I'm saying. Is like, it is dumb, but it's supposed to be, So if you're in on it, then it's fun. But
I mean, I thought Idris Elba was very serious when he said, "I'm Black Superman."
He said he was Black Superman, and he could have been. He could have been.
He should have been.
He also could have been Blade, and he also could have been. But it's fine. We're not going to go into this. There's so many other things.
Could have been Bond. Okay,
Could have
anyway,
been Bond.
yeah,
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Idris Elba, he gets to be this guy.
This guy.
Movie.
This guy in this movie.
But he's great. Hey, also speaking of Idris Elba, he is here for it. Okay, he knows what kind of movie he's in,
Right.
and he hits it. Like it's got the melodrama. It has the insert stupid pointless backstory for no reason, and he sells it. He sells it so well.
And his retractable motorcycle, I might add, it folds.
The magnetic one.
Magnetic, and it folds and contorts underneath, semis on the highway. It's just the most convenient thing to have. I don't know how the motor works in it, or how anything,
or how he can like analyze people and know what moves they're going to make before they make it.
Yeah, he scans their bodies with his digital whatever was going on in his brain, and can produce whatever it is they're getting ready to do, which would be great.
I will also say, though, as great as he is, and I'm telling you guys, Idris Elba probably is my favorite part of this movie. He sells it. He sells it. He sells every bit of it.
Yeah.
I was reflecting on this, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I have to say, despite him having an incredible screen presence and selling the threat and danger, he actually, Laron, if you think about it, he basically fails
every time.
Every single time.
Every time.
Every single
like the worst
time.
Villain.
And in fact, he's given multiple chances to not fail.
Yeah.
And he continues to do it.
Yeah.
So I just think that's
and
kind of
considering
hilarious.
all of the advantages he has over them with all his advanced technology and what have you, especially in these situations, it seems like he's always just 8 miles away from where he's supposed to be. So, yeah.
I just think it's a huge testament to Idris Elba, a man who can, because if this was like just any other, if this was just some like no-name actor, it would have been the weak, sauciest villain of all time. There would have been no Mac sauce here.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, on the burger. So,
for sure.
So he does a great job. I think he's one of the highlights of the movie for me. I mean, the chemistry between Jason Statham and The Rock is really strong. They play well off each other.
Yeah, I don't think it would work without that. And no. I think that's part of the charm. That's the charm element that kind of sticks into it. It's fun watching them banter about things. Their machoism, their egoism. And so I feel like what's interesting too for me most, because like The Rock has proved time and time again through, he's been an action star for years and he's embraced that because he was always doing performance art when he was wrestling,
right.
Like, so that's always what that was in general. He just kind of, it's been reincarnated into film. But I think what's interesting is the Jason Statham is someone I never would have assumed would be like humorous until this franchise. And then I think maybe he was in Spy a couple years ago with Melissa McCarthy, like where you just kind of got an element where like he's actually pretty funny. He has a self-knowing humor as well.
I feel like the movie, again, this actually hits on something I think the franchise has done well over the years, which is writing to their performance strengths, right?
Sure.
Like the movie does, I think, because they had seen him in 2 other Fast movies where he's kind of comedic sometimes, they leaned full-blown into the comedy and they were able to write to what Statham does well in this film.
I would say there is a heavy dose of comedy in this that was not as present in some of the. I mean, like again, like you said, there's glimmers of that between the two of them. Like, and maybe like they had a couple of really strong one-liners that just hit and landed, and they're like, that could be its own movie. Just the two of them, like their own little adventures together. And they, here I definitely think the comedy adds so much levity to it this time that. The franchise always has moments of humor, but I feel like
and that's part of the joy of the franchise is it's like so ridiculous, it's kind of hilarious, right? I think the chemistry works there. I think the spectacle works more than it doesn't. There are moments when I feel like it leans a little heavier into CG than I would like. However, they do a good deal of stuff practically, which I think is fun. And when it's not done practically, there's always a really funny gimmick, which makes it a joke.
Yeah.
So that's like the running down the elevator thing. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I will say there are some very strange production choices in this movie.
Sure.
Laron, Laron saw this movie. We saw this together at a screener, and there is a scene in particular in the final act of the movie, and I will not spoil it. However, it is basically Hobbs and Shaw standing in a field.
A field, an open field.
An open
a vast,
field.
open, scenic field, for
Yes,
sure, to be sure.
Very huge. Like there's nothing around.
But there's a montage that's going on around them, and they're having a conversation that's...
It's just like a talk. It's like a normal talk about the plan.
The plan, the heist, or whatever it's going to go up next.
And it is shot with a drone, or it looks like a drone.
Very expensive shot.
And it's very expensive shot because it's like sweeping in and
like
out.
Something you would only
capturing.
see.
It's like, like what is it? This is like
yeah, I don't know. I would say a Kubrick film or something that's something very extravagant and not. I mean,
usually this is the type of scene you see when two dudes are about to face off and kill each other. Right?
If they were fighting, if there was some kind of a brawl, it would make sense. But it just seeing
they're
them
just standing around,
standing
talking
in a field and getting these aerial shots from like
huge,
eons away,
and you're seeing all the scenery
just looming around them. I was like, this is pretentious, and it doesn't need to be.
No,
so
the first time I was like, this is a strange choice. The second time I was like, wait, this is a pattern.
Yeah.
Did they intentionally? Third time you're like, wow, they definitely chose to do this because it's
true.
Because the other pieces, not only are they getting all these shots, that scene in particular, they're using crossfades with the editing.
Yeah,
and it's the
strange.
weirdest thing because you're like, it's just two dudes standing in a field talking.
Yeah.
And I actually laughed out loud. I thought it was hilarious
it was
because
funny.
it was like so wild and unfitting for what they were doing that it felt like it was like, look at how goofy this is.
And we had a conversation afterwards. It's basically like, I was like, I guess they just had an exorbitant amount of money to spend on this film, and they're like, hey, so how could we just spend the budget? Like, what do you need to do? Let's have this extravagant conversation in a field and make it look way more cinematic than it really warrants. So.
Either that or The Rock had it in his contract somewhere that they had to showcase his home country
I wouldn't
very
be surprised.
well. I don't know.
Well, yeah, maybe.
They're okay, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole at all because I actually like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Quite a bit. I think he's got a great energy, great charisma. He is able to entertain and own the screen unlike anyone else. He's got like a very distinct flavor. But I do know that there was also his ego butted heads with Vin Diesel's on the production of The Fate and the Furious, so much so that The Rock is no longer appearing in the 9th movie. And also he forced the studio to release this one first before doing Fast 9.
Wow.
So, I don't know the full story there, so I'm not going to speak out of turn. But I do wonder, there are certain things, basically the last act of this movie spends a lot of time going into his character Luke Hobbs' backstory when I was...
Yeah.
I know it's Hobbs and Shaw, but I don't really feel like anyone was asking for that.
And the timing of it is so strange. It's like, why is that the button end of this already lengthy 2.5+ movie? I mean, well, 2 hours and 20 minutes.
It feels like a 2 hour, half hour long movie.
Because this is the kind of film that definitely needed to be a lean hour 45.
Yeah.
You might be able to make an excuse for an hour and 57-minute movie, 2 hours max. But like 2 hours and 25 some odd minutes, it feels so like...
It's very long. It feels an entire act too long.
Yeah.
I will say it right now. In fact, there is a climactic thing that happens 2/3 of the way through the movie that I thought was the climactic finale.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh... It's not over. There's like 30 minutes left.
And the thing is that last 30 minutes is like genial and fine, but tonally it's a little different. And also it's like, pun intended, it literally runs out of gas. And it feels like, once we're here, it's just treading water. And it's like, it's time for this to end now.
I mean, I think the set pieces in that bit were more interesting than the one I just described about 2/3 of the way through the movie. However, I don't know, just from a pacing perspective, it just...
Even my best friends have to go to their room at some point. And that's what that felt like.
Well, and this is another moment where I feel like Fast and Furious 5, 6, and 7 generally did a pretty good job at pacing and not being overindulgent. Whereas Fate of the Furious, a movie we both did not like, kind of felt like it overbloated, way too long,
slogged, and it was
had all the Transformers problems.
Yeah,
all of them.
Exactly.
This feels like kind of in the middle. Yeah. It's got some of that. But it's not so overindulgent and poorly edited,
And maybe that's just the nature of the. I mean, I'm thinking about it now. I'm thinking of this whole entire franchise is that we're getting. You'll get 2 really solid films, and then there has to be one that's just like a repository for again what doesn't really quite work for the franchise, and then they find ways to take those pieces and utilize it for something, and then highlight why we liked it to begin with. So it's like every couple of films we got to have one dumpster, which is kind of what happened. We had Tokyo Drift, we had the 4th one, and then the fifth one was great, and the sixth one was great, and the seventh one was great. So I guess it was just due for another
for a massive
bomb. And it made its money.
It made tons of money, but the studio didn't set a record.
The studio doesn't care that we didn't like it.
No.
So.
So I just think I think this is definitely a step back in the right direction. Because I know after the eighth one, we were like, all right, we're done. It's like we were on that train until the train crashed, and we're like, actually, maybe the train should be over.
Yeah.
This kind of brought me back into it. I feel like Idris Elba added a certain level, and also they're most certainly setting up for the next two Fast and Furious movies in this movie. Won't spoil anything, but there is clear setup. Also, is it a spoiler to say Ryan Reynolds is in this movie?
Ish, but I think I don't know. I feel like I don't know. Maybe that's your call. I think it's a fun surprise, but also it's not like that.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I won't talk about it.
Okay.
I actually don't think I liked him in this movie.
I feel like of the cameos, he was my least favorite.
So another thing I'll mention is there are a lot of cameos in this movie, and they work to varying degrees. I don't want to spoil it. There is one from a very popular known actor who has not appeared in the franchise until this movie that
it doesn't work.
It didn't work for me. It worked. He overdid it.
He overdid it.
He overdid it a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like it was. I just got kind of annoying. I'll be honest.
Sure.
So that didn't work. But there are others.
But then there are reprises of like again Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
I think every movie can use a little more Helen Mirren.
Exactly. She was fantastic.
And she was fantastic in this. And she's in what? And she's in her orange jumpsuit, and she still has her lipstick and her vampiness going on.
Right.
And she knows what movie she's in. She's having a good time. She's an Oscar winner, and she's in a friend a really silly car chase franchise.
Hey, listen,
and
man.
She's not smug and phoning it in. She's having fun.
She's having fun, exactly. And she just paid for her grandkids to go to their dream college in one movie, one fell swoop. I'm sure she's loving that,
There it is.
Or she bought a yacht. I don't know what it
One
was.
of the two.
One of the two. I mean, overall, though, the cameos, hit or miss. I do think it's hilarious. There are not one, not two, but 3 post-credit sequences.
Yeah.
And
none of which I think contribute anything to the plot. Just for the gimmick of saying we have a post-credit.
Zero. It's like they had too much footage, and I will not say 2 of them may or may not have featured the cameo that I found annoying in the movie.
Sure.
So I felt like extra misled because we sat through the entire credits, and they were like, okay.
Yeah.
I was sure one of them would be here's the setup for Fast 9. It's like they had too much footage that they cut out of the movie, and they're like, we got to use it somewhere.
And in the future, this franchise, I think, would do better. I mean, would do well to, listen to these kinds of, these kinds of critiques just in general, just because I feel like if you had sliced off a solid 20, 25 minutes of this, then all the charm, all the spectacle, all the ridiculousness of it, this would have just been a lean, polished, fun, and it still is that. It's just one of those things where it's like with that excess of excess fat, it does prolong its welcome somewhat, and then it does start to strain on the patience because you were only invested to a certain degree when you walked in anyway.
This was a good popcorn movie.
A good popcorn movie.
It
that
could
maybe
have
had a little bit
been
too much butter on the
exactly. Too much butter. Yeah, that's right.
We're gonna just go.
Keep going for it.
Playing with these food references.
I don't want to say it could have been great, like as in like a true great movie, but I think it could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
But just by, like you said, editing, chopping stuff down. Yeah.
Simple things could have made this punctuated. Like, we spent too much time in places that we didn't need to.
Yeah. Absolutely. So on that, sir, let's give our Yelp review. Oh, excuse me. Let's give our rating for the movie. So for our listeners who have just now tuning in, our rating system starts with a buy the film on Blu-ray. So you go see this movie in the theater and then you purchase it once it hits Blu-ray, digital, on demand. There's the full price, which is where you go pay to see it in a VIP screening, maybe even buy dinner. It said the VIP screening. You spend a lot of money. Then there's the matinee, which is self-explanatory. There's the stream it option, and then lastly, there is the skip or trash it option. So what say you, Laron Chapman?
I can't go beyond matinee with this. I feel like that's probably where this lands. See this on a matinee, lighthearted. Definitely an entertaining use of 2.5 hours, but see it in the afternoon when you're not too tired and, you still got the rest of your day ahead of you. So it's not too offensive. So, yeah.
Yeah, I certainly would not go full price in any capacity. I mean, I feel like matinee, if you're a fan of these movies or if you're a fan of The Rock or Jason Statham, actually, no, or Idris Elba, any of the three of them. You like any of the three of them, you're in good shape. But if you don't like them or you don't care, you're kind of passive, just stream it.
Just stream it. Yeah.
I mean,
it'll play just as well.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I think if you are a fan,
you can fast forward it.
If you're a fan, you can definitely. You should see this on the big screen because it's a big fun time.
Yeah, it's a spectacle. Yeah.
But, if you're just kind of like, Fast and Furious, whatever, I mean, yeah, just stream it. Maybe. Like,
you can live without it also.
Yeah, you can live without it.
But, if you're at least marginally interested in this franchise.
Or the actors.
It has all the components of what you would go to see a movie like this for.
Agreed.
And if you're a person who doesn't like these sort of things, then you'll probably dislike it as much as the others. So...
All right, Laron, Chapman. So those are our ratings for Hobbs and Shaw. So that is playing in a theater near you right now, and probably every theater near you right now, as a matter of fact. But Laron, Chapman, we're also going to review another movie that is a lot healthier for the diet. Might help the digestion go down. Might change your perception.
Yes.
On things. And that movie is Lulu Wang's The Farewell. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into our review.
What's wrong, Dad? Please tell me.
Your Nan is dying.
She doesn't know, so you can't say anything. The family thinks it's better not to tell her.
Why is that better?
Chinese people have a saying, when people get cancer, they die. We have to go to China.
Wedding is an excuse so everyone can see her.
He's my only cousin. Did you think I should be there?
You can't hide your emotions. If you go, Nan will find out right away.
So this IMDb synopsis is much different, and you could argue it spoils the film, but let's be real. This is not a plot-driven film. The synopsis reads, a Chinese family discovers their grandmother has only a short while left to live and decide to keep her in the dark, scheduling a wedding to gather before she dies.
That's the plot.
That's the whole plot.
That's the whole movie.
That's it. That's the whole movie. Mm-hmm. This is a character study. This is a culture study, and this is an analysis and exploration of families and Chinese culture, of the themes like coming to terms with family traditions that maybe you don't quite understand, and the value of those things. Yeah. And it's about a lot of things that really hit close to home. But before we get into all of those things, Laron, Chapman, what did you think of The Farewell?
I thought this was very fantastic drama. I think if we're going with food references here, it's a nice, comforting bowl of pho. It's just balm for the soul. It's good for you. It feels good, and you feel healed after watching.
You feel warmed.
Yeah.
But also like you ate something healthy.
That you ate something healthy, like you did something good for yourself. Yeah. I think it's great. I think it's just it's ripe with heart, humor, and humanity, and I think that Awkwafina in the lead role is just so natural.
She's great. She's so relatable.
Mm-hmm. So relatable, so natural, and just really compelling, to watch. It's very understated performance too. It's not showy in any way, and she normally is because she comes from a background in comedy. So it's really rich and ripe and textured, a textured drama. So
yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. And actually, the thing is. The thing I really like about this is largely because of Awkwafina's performance and just the story in general. So I'm a white male who grew up in the United States with no lineage outside the United States. My family came from Europe, right? So I've been fascinated with Japanese culture via anime and gaming and all of things, but I don't know nearly as much about Chinese culture.
Sure.
And so I don't really have a super well-versed or well-researched, understanding of like how the family system works in China. So the thing I really liked about this movie was that it helped me connect with a very accessible main character. It helped me connect on I feel like pretty deep level with a character who I would probably never encounter in the real world, and certainly would not get. I will almost certainly will never have that sort of experience where I can explore exactly that Chinese or Chinese American perspective.
Sure.
Because even she's a fish out of water in China, right? And it reminds me a lot of one of the reasons I love Moonlight from a couple of years back, which is this is me encountering a character that it really is
from a world and a place that I wouldn't visit, that I wouldn't really encounter or know much about. So.
Right. But it's a world that exists nonetheless.
Yeah.
It's a real world thing. I mean, this story is based directly off of Lulu Wang's own story.
Yeah.
She actually did This American Life episode, I think I want to say in a couple years back. So this is definitely a real world story with so this is a person kind of telling an autobiographical version, a fictionalized version of her own real story. In fact, her grandma is a real person. The grandma in this movie is based off her real grandma, who, by the way, is this a spoiler? I'm not going to say it. It's based off of a real person, right? So, I just think that this movie does effectively one of my favorite things about movies, which is it helps me empathize and place myself in the shoes of someone who I otherwise would not have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's eye-opening, right?
It is eye-opening.
But because I also, as a person with a family, close family ties, you relate to all of those. You pick up on the things that you do have in common, but then also kind of highlights the different experiences that I don't have.
Yeah.
And I just think it's done in such a really, it's not in your face. It's just very honest, raw story.
The beautiful thing about stories like this is you start finding the commonalities and the differences. You know what I'm saying? Like their customs are different. But they still have the same feelings. They still have the same emotions. They still deal with the same problems. They just have a different method for how they channel it, how they, combat certain things. And I think it was a brilliant idea to have, again, this, American Chinese, hybrid of a character there with Awkwafina. And to see kind of the disconnect that she has kind of with both worlds. There's a really poignant very moment whenever she's in the hotel where the concierge says to her, so is America better than and she's like, well, it's different. It's different. Yeah. So better, right? It's like just different, actually.
And he kept pressing. He's like, yeah.
And she wasn't going to give him a different answer because she didn't have one. Right. She really couldn't say whether she liked one more than the other because they were both a part of her identity, And so, even if she did have somewhat of a disconnect to her more, traditional roots, she had a connection in some way to both. So
yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and that's also something that played into the production of this film. So, in prepping to see this movie, I listened to the Terry Gross interview, All Things Considered. It's a great interview with the director Lulu Wang, and talking about the duality there. She actually had a hard time getting this movie made for that very reason because the American distributors originally wanted her to make the character getting married the main character.
Oh no,
yeah. Right?
I don't know if that would have worked the same way.
Oh, it
might have been a different film. I won't say it would have been bad, but I don't know if it would have been as interesting.
Right. I think it would have fallen more into
my big fat Greek wedding.
Well, that's exactly what she said. That's what they wanted. They wanted my big fat Greek wedding, but in China, and they didn't want to have. They wanted everything in English, nothing in Chinese.
No, I loved the natural.
Right.
I mean, I don't mind subtitles. Some people might, but I think it just added so much authenticity to it.
I think it elevated the authenticity greatly. This movie would have been missing had they done full English.
It was about 60-40, I would say. It was more subtitled than it wasn't.
I agree.
But I don't think it was a complicated story. So it was easy to follow even if you weren't reading, so.
But the other part of it is the Chinese distributors said that Awkwafina's character, main character, was too Western.
I remember reading that, yeah. She was not their choice, and then she stripped herself of makeup and came in for an audition and then blew them away. So it was one of those things where it's like, never underestimate, you know what I mean? Like a missed opportunity there. So it's great she did it because she's perfect for it.
Right.
She's absolutely perfect for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's really cool that Lulu Wang was able to kind of finesse and find, partners, financial partners or whatnot, who were able to get the movie made because, that just kind of goes to show making a film about like these different cultures can be challenging sometimes. Oh, I want to tell my story about how I went to China and this happened. Yeah, well, it's not Chinese enough. Or, yeah, well, it's not accessible to American audiences. So you need to change X, Y, Z to make it happen. So I just think it's really that fact really touches on, I think, one of the core themes of the movie, which is being foreign in America to some extent, but definitely being foreign in China, which is where your heritage is, right? I also found the just again like the deep dive exploration of, hey, maybe this tradition's not great, but we need you to come around and understand why we're doing it. There are reasons we're doing it, right? And which I think is something a lot of people can relate to. Hey, sometimes there are family traditions or decisions made by the family that ultimately, you roll with.
And then as an audience, we kind of inherit the same respect and understanding for it, even if we don't necessarily agree with it. Because I think I said that when I was there, like how they deal with grief is different than how we deal with it here. Like where we wear our emotions on our sleeves, and it's all about being vulnerable and expressing yourself and being honest about things. And, and then there, it's all about strength and reserve and, being a pillar, of that, and not, not emoting everything because it's seen as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because we're having a deep dive conversation about like toxic masculinity and how males aren't supposed to be this way. So it's interesting to see that tension, and that ideology, in both from different worlds.
Well, and I think I love that there's different worldviews, and it makes you really think about how we envision these ideas, right? So in China, that's kind of respectable, but in America, it's such a different take that it's almost there's so much negativity surrounded around not sharing your feelings. And I think there are good reasons for that.
Sure.
However, in China, that's, at least as portrayed in the film, that's kind of like you said, a pillar of their culture, a sign of solidarity among family members. Yeah. And
because you can see them all fighting it. They're all fighting the emotion. They all have it. It's all there. It's like right in the, right.
Well, I think that's the most beautiful part of that movie too, is just everyone is at this, basically this like long funeral for their grandma, and but none of them can say it. And I just thought, it was hilarious when the groom getting married, the bride and groom were like pressured. And by the way, they were pressured into getting married specifically so that they could come together to visit their mom and passing away. And that's kind of weird. And I don't know how I feel about that. But even the look on his face is complicated because it's like, I'm getting married. I'm not sure I was ready. Oh my God, my grandma's gonna die. I can't tell her. Look on his face in particular the whole movie, because he was always like just on the him and Awkwafina were always on the brink of like crying or showing emotion.
Sure.
And I found those performances subtle in a lot of ways to be really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was also just fun being so steeped in this, because in their culture, the closest thing in memory that kind of reminds me of it is Crazy Rich Asians, which again, dealing with a romantic comedy concept, but also too, Americanized, westernized, and Asian people coming and seeing all of the different traditions, customs. There's always food around. There's always a communal effort to help do different things, like everything they do together. Like there's a scene where the bride earring is on the floor. All five of them are on the floor, like, on all fours looking for it. It's just interesting how they work like a unit, and with everything. It's very similar to like Italian families and what have you, where there's just so much. It's about conversation, it's about fellowship, it's about, just kind of respecting your elders, respecting your ancestors, respecting the customs for reasons that, may not be explained, but are just always understood. It's their form of religion in a way, But I found it very fascinating, and also, again, like there's a humbleness you have watching it. Even if I don't really understand it, it makes sense to them. And they have their justifications for it.
Right, and I do feel like to a large degree the movie does a very good job at helping you understand their justifications. So it's just one of those things where I do feel like for me it's a much different movie, but it does feel like this year's Moonlight, where I feel like I walked into this movie expecting one thing and being so just taken aback by it, and shown such a wildly different experience that I from a world I will never experience on my own, that I found powerful and enlightening, and also positive. This is
hopeful. It's empathetic, and
this last weekend has been a dumpster fire in the real world, to be frank, and this movie made me feel that even in dark times of a family or hard times of a family, that ultimately humanity is a beautiful thing, because the movie I feel like is very honest about how difficult the situation is, how it's wearing on the family. But the beautiful thing is the family coming together.
Yeah.
And there's something really beautiful about that. It's bittersweet. It's kind of sad, but at the end of the day, the family being together, I think, is the thing that I walk away with as like this beautiful, triumphant, heartwarming thing in the end.
Yeah, for sure. And I think them coming together too, like you said, that heartwarming, commonality they have, in their grief, how they're dealing with it and how it manifests in different ways in them. Because they'd all have a moment, where it hits them in a different way, and it just shows you there's no right way to feel, but they're at war, obviously, with their custom and their ideologies that they have.
Their emotions, other family members,
how to process that, where she wears it, she comes there and it's right there on her face, and they critique her for it, like, you have that sad face, don't bring that around her, and
she does the whole smiley face thing.
The one beautiful thing I thought that they did really well is they do make the grandmother, or not, what is it, Nai. They make her a fully embodied, lovable character.
Oh yes.
Because I think if they hadn't, then it would have been harder to hinge all of our emotions and empathy with these characters. But because she is such a burst of life and she's hilarious and funny when you see her on screen, it makes it bittersweet, because we understand why they love her too, because we've grown to fall.
You understand why the family would be so devastated by this loss, and understanding the value that she adds to each member of the entire family,
Right.
Which again leads to the different experiences these characters bring to the table. They all have a different relationship with her, but they all love her, and you kind of see those moments come out. But yeah, I think this is one of my favorite movies of the year so far.
Absolutely, yeah,
hands down.
And unlike Hobbs and Shaw, it does not overstay its welcome. It's a very lean hour and 38 minutes, but it doesn't need to be longer. It doesn't need to be. It understands exactly, the story is ripe and full, and as it is. It doesn't need any more screen time. I felt like we spent just enough time with all these characters to get the message across, and it is. It's beautiful. It's heartwarming. It's well shot. There's not very many close-up shots, but I found really fascinating. They do a lot of
from wide shots or from kind of mid shots. Yeah,
it's very effective. Too. It's very effective in that way too. I mean, I'm so used to first-time filmmakers, for the most part, leaning on like close-ups, and here,
very
they let the story breathe.
Visually, very somber. Lots of grays. Lots of dirty things.
The score was very somber too. It was. I don't know if it was howling or like it was a woman's voice,
right?
That was kind of humming underneath.
Yeah. Everything until you get to the wedding, which is a lot more colorful and a little more fun, which makes sense. But
there's humor in this too. There's also a very funny.
It's a very funny movie.
I don't want to make it sound like it's so dreary and maudlin, but it is actually very humorous throughout. There's always a glimmer of hope throughout all of the sadness. So there is that bittersweetness, but
and also there's the sadness and bittersweetness that's below the surface is always underneath. Again,
it's melancholy.
It's melancholy. These characters are having beautiful, poignant, touching moments with their grandmother, in which they believe are her last days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And except for the grandmothers know it. Like, so it just kind of creates this weird tension. Every single thing you see is like, ugh. It's kind of like when you go back and rewatch Game of Thrones and you're like, oh, that's the last time XYZ happens. By the way, we didn't mention Hobbs and Shaw. They have massive freaking Game of Thrones spoilers in there. That was rude.
Yeah, very rude. Very rude. If you have not seen the finale to Game of Thrones, please
don't watch
Hobbs and Shaw. You probably won't anyway, but if you did, they definitely spoiled some things there. But
yeah. Back to the farewell though.
Sorry.
No. I had to make that note caveat. We forgot to add that during the Hobbs and Shaw piece. But this has my highest recommendation, kind of going down our buy full price matinee stream skip trash it sale or sale ranking or recommendation system. This is definitely a buyer. This is a full price. This is a movie I fully hope will be at the Oscars in some capacity. I don't know if it will, but I certainly think it's up in that conversation.
I think so. Absolutely. I think it's absolutely worthy of it. I think if we don't just have so many top heavy hitting dramas here in the fall time, I don't see how this would be overlooked. I mean, it's one of those films that it is a quiet, lean film, Very, very, but I feel like its heart is so pure, and it's just one of those things that I think is going to be on people's minds, kind of like a Juno or something like
maybe a Grand Budapest Hotel.
Just one of those
earlier in the year, and the people just keep talking about it.
Keep talking about it. I feel like it will. I just don't.
Hey, if we're still talking about it after the Toronto Film Festival, it's in good shape.
Yeah,
which is right around the corner. By the way,
and it's the perfect counter to all the cynicism, all the kind of bleakness in the world right now. It's a movie that's just so full of life and humanity, and it's vibrant, and I think it's a great I think it's a film that's healing afterwards.
Yeah.
So.
I think healing's a great way to watch. Yeah. In fact, I think after this weekend I watched it on Saturday, and we're recording this on a Monday. I think after the last 48 hours I need to go watch it again to be healed a little more. But
sure.
But not to bring too much real world baggage here. But not only am I going to recommend it, I'm going to say go look up the This American Life episode on this. I think it's good. It's a different perspective. It's more done like as an investigative journalism story. And also I would check out her Lulu Wang's interview with Terry Gross. I found all of this very insightful. And again, just this movie does a thing that I think movies at their best do, which is just help you empathize with worldviews you'd never experienced and reconsider how you view certain things, and makes you feel good all at the same time.
Yeah, there's not a moment, a character, a plot device, anything like that in it that doesn't feel pure, honest, and real.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing that feels good about it. It doesn't feel good because it's like trying to manipulate you into feeling good. It feels good because it just feels so true and honest and relatable.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, that will wrap up our review of The Farewell. So obviously, if we're going to recommend one of these films for you to go see,
go see The Farewell.
Go see The Farewell.
Go see The Farewell.
It's gonna you're gonna like yourself a lot more after you see that movie versus Hobbs and Shaw, which
let the teenage boys go see. Teenage boys and dad take them to go see Hobbs and Shaw. And then for the more,
if I was their dad, I would take them to see The
This
Farewell.
is fair. Unless I'm your dad, then we'll be seeing all of these type of movies. So
yeah, absolutely.
So,
all right,
we're gonna get some culture.
Get cultured. All right, Laron Chapman, where can people keep up to with you until our next month's podcast?
People can follow me and all my excursions in the film world here in Oklahoma City at Freaky AF Film on Instagram, or you can follow me at Laron Chapman on Facebook.
Excellent. Of course, you can find me tweeting about all the things, films, television, video games over on Twitter at CMasters Talk. That's letter C Masters Talk. You can also find me at CMasters Talk on Instagram and Letterboxd. So check me out in those places. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this month's episode of the Cinematic Schematic. We'll catch you again next time.